As a divine feminine woman, forget all the buying the right clothes and the scented candles, the pretty dresses, the pretty bags, and the pretty house and aesthetic room decor. Forget all of those things. If your energy is not right, like the flow will just not be flowing, okay? Hey crystals, welcome or welcome back to the channel. And if you are new here, hi, I am Damsey and you are most welcome to this crystal amazing community where we talk all things lifestyle, beauty, mindset, and femininity. So if you're a lady and you're all about feminine growth, you're all about self development, you're all about superior mindset, you're all about divine mindset, you're all about success and beauty and health, just tap into this channel because that is what we're all about here. And it's not just a channel for women, you can also learn a lot from this channel if you are a guy or a man. So you are a lady or a woman and you've finally gotten to that place in your life where you've decided that you want to really tap into your divine feminine energy, which is your highest self in terms of beauty, in terms of your relationship with life, in terms of your relationship with people, in terms of your relationship with yourself, in terms of your relationship with success and progress and self development. And you finally realized how that just simply tapping into your most authentic divine feminine energy is where the journey to this higher self that you want to get to begins. But just like many other people who try to, step up to a higher level or quantum leap to like a higher level or something, they do all the work, they make all the sacrifices, they pay for all the courses, they read all the books, and yet still keep getting feedbacks in your life like, oh, you act too masculine, you seem so fake, or you're not feminine, or you're not submissive. And you're still getting like all this negative feedback from people around you and even from your own result, because nothing gives you a more negative feedback than the result you get at the end of the day after you've done all the work you're trying to put in. So you know that as a lady, you have done your best, you've read all the books, you've done all the meditation, you've literally done everything that you can in your power to step up and really tap into your highest form as a woman, and yet you still find yourself in a place that seems like the bottom, where every woman who is easily forgotten in the history books seem to be waking up in. And it's really frustrating. And as a lady myself, I know how difficult being in that static area can be. And that is why I've decided to do this video, because a lot of the time it is one thing to say that you want to step up, like you want to upgrade your life, which is basically and essentially what it means to tap into your divine feminine energy, is about unlocking your higher self, right? So you're trying to step from this area where you are to this point where you want to get to. But in order to get to that point, knowledge is a very important aspect of it. And knowledge is exactly what you're doing now, like watching this video. But what isn't being talked about is how that you, well, not you directly, but some things, some really, really heavy, high density things that sits on your energy can actually hold you back from attaining that next level. And that is why today I want to talk about the soul wounds that can prevent your feminine energy from flourishing. Because a lot of the times, it is not that you do not know what to do or how to do what you need to do. It is that you have all this knowledge, you have all the skills, you've bought all the right dresses, you've bought all the right things, you've prepared your environment to support you in this journey to your higher self. But what is still holding you back are the things that have sat in your energy, things that have lived with you in your spirit man longer than you can even imagine. and things like trauma. Yes, trauma. There are so many things that actually can hold your divine feminine energy from flourishing. There are things like soul wound, habits, people, and environment. There are so many little factors. But today I am going to be talking about soul wounds, which is also called trauma, because I have thought about this thing, I have read about this thing, and I know that a lot of the other small factors that contribute, that literally hold your feminine energy down from really flourishing and just really taking over, is that a lot of those small things actually springs up from the soul wounds. So your trauma is like the main thing that really holds your higher self, your divine feminine energy, from just flowing and flourishing. And so in today's video, I just want to dive into the specific kinds of soul wounds that actually holds your trauma, that actually holds your divine feminine energy, that actually prevents your divine feminine energy from flourishing. Whenever I think about the divine feminine energy, right, it is an energy of flow. Okay, so this is something that I talked about wildly. This is something that I described in this video right here. This is one of the first videos that I did on the subject of femininity and divine femininity. So if you have not seen that video, you really need to see that video, because you really need to understand what it is you're trying to do. You really need to understand what it means. If you do not understand what it means, you cannot really fully manifest it, if that makes any sense. So try and watch that video if you haven't. And so basically in that video, I described the feminine energy as an energy of flow. Okay, it is an energy that takes on the personality of the water element of nature. When you see a woman that is just radiating pure divine feminine energy, right, that woman is kind of like the sight of water, the feel of water to the people that are observing her. I don't know if you've really thought about this before, but do you realize that water is one of the few natural occurring elements in the world that nobody really hates, right? Like, it is that element that everybody appreciates. It is that element that its uniqueness is just so distinct and it is incomparable. So that is just how a woman flourishing in her divine feminine energy is. You are like everybody's type. Why do I say this? Because children love water, adults love water, even terrorists in the forest. Okay, let me not use terrorists. Maybe we should use a hunter, for instance. So hunters, he goes through the forest for the hunt and he comes back, he has blood and dirt all over him. And the moment he just goes in to wash himself, he loves the idea of washing himself, because water is so pure like that. And hardly can anyone just hate water in its purest form. But just the same way we admire water, especially when it is in its flowy form, it's the same way there is this disgust that appears in our face whenever we see water that has litter dumped on it. And if you've ever seen gutter water, like water from the gutters, especially in areas where the gutters are not being maintained and they are being decorated with litters and all of that, we all know how that water is. Like, that thing was fresh water before it got littered, and that is what it looks like when a feminine woman has a lot of trauma embedded and living in her energy. It is like littered water that is still and stagnant. It is not attractive to look at. People do not want to stand near it. It's usually the mad people that can stay in a very dirty area like that. But healthy people do not want to be standing close to a littered gutter for that long. So that is just how it is in real life. When you as a woman, like, you've done all the work but you still have all these nasty traumas, undealt traumas that are kind of sitting on your energy, that thing has a way of showing itself. People can literally read it off your energy. They can read it that okay, yeah, she's pretty, but like that is not a woman that you want to take home to your parents. That is not a woman that you want to introduce to your friends. That is not a girl that you want to be friends with. So I'm sure that a lot of us have seen, examples of women like that who are, like so beautiful, and then when that situation occurs, when you really get to see like the ugliness of that woman, the nastiness and attitude and behavior, and it's something that they did, it's like your whole perspective of that woman just changes instantly. Now, I do not mean to throw shade, and I personally admire this actress a lot, the actress Amber Heard. But we all remember the time when she was having the whole situation, like the was it a divorce or a breakup court situation with the A-list actor Johnny Depp. Before that period, she was labeled one of the most beautiful women in the world. And it's so crazy how that after that whole court situation was done, people now hate her. I go under a lot of comment section about this woman and I see so many hate. And this is a woman that used to be loved. And you see, like just how I just described it, traumas are like liters on your feminine energy. If you're in your purest divine feminine energy, it is something that people admire. They may never say, but it is something that they admire. It is something that women, kind of silently envy and they just want, and it is something that men desire and they want to possess. They want you as a friend, they want you as a business partner, they want you as a romantic partner, they want you as a wife. Okay, so it is something that is very, very beautiful. It is a good thing for a woman to want to be in her divine feminine energy. It is one of the most beautiful desires that you can have on earth. But when you have all this undealt with traumas, undealt with soul wounds that are sitting in your energy, it kind of just projects an ugly side of you. It reduces the beauty of your soul. It really does. It really does. And that is why I personally choose to call them soul wounds for the sake of this video, because these are things that have dented your soul and that have kind of brought some form of ugliness to your soul. And as a divine feminine woman, forget all the buying the right clothes and the scented candles, the pretty dresses, the pretty bags, and the pretty house and aesthetic room decor. Forget all of those things. If your energy is not right, like the flow will just not be flowing, okay? And so that is why I find it really important that I talk about the soul wounds. So in this video, I am going to break down the 4 major kinds of soul wounds that prevent your feminine energy from flourishing, and of course how you can deal with those soul wounds. Throughout the video, I am going to be breaking down each and every one of those soul wounds, and I'm going to be explaining how those traumas are formed. I believe that it's very important that if you really are serious about getting to the bottom of really liberating yourself from these traumas and separating yourself from these traumas, you need to understand how they came to be. Not just for you, but also for the sake of your future daughter and your future son, like your future children, because knowing how these wounds form can really help you in making better decisions as a parent in the future. And it doesn't matter if you do not wish to become a parent. This knowledge can also help you to just really understand why certain things are just not flowing for you, despite you putting in all of the work. Okay, so buckle up. This is going to be a very lengthy video, and I have decided to just break it into like different parts so that the length will not bore most of my new viewers. But one thing I can assure you is that this video is definitely going to be a very valuable video. And if you have clicked on this video with an expectation, be rest assured that you will definitely get, the expectation that you clicked in for. But enough of that said, let's just get right into the meat of this video. So the first soul wound that prevents the feminine energy from flourishing is the father wound. The father wound. And I had to start with this particular wound because the father wound is like the foundation for most of the other deadly wounds that a lot of humans in the race of their lives experience, right? So what is the father wound? First of all, let's start by defining the primary purpose of a father in the life of a child. Now, there is just something I want to explain, right? Like, there's something about being born as a child, that stage where we're just being born as children. That is the dependent stage of a child. The earliest life of a child, like the earliest period of a child's life, is also called the dependent stage of the child's life. And I do believe that even like the psychology of a child is designed in such a way that they cannot help but be dependent on two pillars that are supposed to be the one to enable them to be able to develop into a proper healthy teenager, which is like the next major stage after the child stage. So in the beginning of a child's life, right, a healthy child, the original design is supposed to be that the child is being brought to the world by a masculine energy and a feminine energy. That is a father and a mother. And now each parent has a primary purpose that they are meant to fulfill in the life of the child, to aid in the child developing as a proper healthy child. It is like a void that needs to be filled, and everything about the design of the child pushes him or her to require these things, right? So the father's purpose, I believe, it has something to do with defining the identity of the child, helping the child to define their identity and like keep them grounded. Like I said before, guys, we are spirit beings. Now, spirit can have a lot of energy. We all require that level of groundedness to be able to function properly in the world. And that groundedness, it comes from being grounded in a form of identity. And a lot of people lack it. A lot of people didn't get that as a child due to, one, maybe the father being absent, or them having a father that was present but not emotionally invested in their life. So he wasn't an intentional father, he was only a present father. And there is a difference. Now, we're not here to even like drag the difference, right? It doesn't matter if the child grows up with a father or the child doesn't grow up with a father. The fact is, if the father failed to pour into the child the parts of the identity that he's supposed to help the child to build, that becomes something that is lacking in the child's life. And one might wonder, how does it now develop into a wound? Well, it develops into a wound because there is a space for it inside of the child. Like, there is that void. So when you have a space or a void inside of you, it is required to be filled. There is this saying that there is not meant to be a void or a vacuum in nature. If a vacuum exists in nature, something is going to fill it up. And something has to fill it up. That is the order of life, right? And this is like a void for the father to fill. And in many cases, if the father didn't fill it as a result of lacking the emotional intelligence to connect with the child and doing his part, or he wasn't even present to begin with, that void remains empty. And what happens is that if that void is not filled with the good stuff that it's supposed to be filled with, it is now left open. The body, knowing that this is a major requirement for the growth of this child, the body is going to keep that scope. And it keeps it as a wound. It becomes like a wound. And that is how the father wound develops. This is the simplest way that I can explain it in a way that makes sense without bringing in all the science jargons and all of that. So the question now is, what is the effect of the father wound in a child, and how does this affect a female child's feminine energy? Now I'm going to get into that. So a father is supposed to be the one to help his daughter or his son to create their identity in the world. That is like the main spiritual purpose that the father should fulfill in the life of a child. So now, when that is not done, what is the effect of the father wound? So one of the effects of the father wound is unworthiness. Unworthiness, right? It also leads to low self-esteem or lack of confidence in the child. It also leads to the good girl syndrome, or accepting the bare minimum from people and from life. So all of this starts from the feeling of unworthiness, which in my own opinion is the main effect of the father wound upon a child's life, right? Because like I said, the father is meant to create and solidify the identity of a child. Like at a certain age, a child is supposed to know who she is. And it is honestly from knowing who you are that you are able to just know how to navigate life. From knowing who you are, you're able to know how to walk, where to walk, when not to work, right? You're able to choose people. It all comes from that grounding. And that grounding is, it's connected to you knowing who you are. And that is not something that children can figure out on their own. This is why a child cannot come into the world except through a male and a female. And it is God's original design that it comes through a pair, like a father and a mother. That's just the role that the father is supposed to fill for the child. So in the case where the father fails to do this, the child feels unworthiness. And when you don't know yourself, it is easy for you to feel like you're not worthy of certain things. When your body knows that you do not know yourself, it honestly affects the way that you show up in the world. Yeah, you might look all nicely dressed and adorned on the outside and pretty, faking the confidence and everything, but on the inside, you know deep down that you feel unworthy. You feel unworthy of what you're getting. You feel unworthy of the people around you. You feel unworthy of the person that you're dating. So unworthiness kind of opens the room because you do not know yourself, right? You do not know your worth. You don't know your worth. You don't know your value. You don't know who you're supposed to be, who you're supposed to show up as in every situation of life. And that kind of opens the room to low self-esteem and lack of confidence, because confidence can only come from being grounded in knowledge, from being grounded in a conviction. That is why I really do not believe that confidence can be faked. I think it can be enhanced by doing certain actions, but I think ultimately people who honestly just don't have a strong sense of self, they are bound to fail in that fake it till you make it game. And I'm pretty sure if you're one of such person, you can definitely relate, right? So when you feel unworthy, right, it's easy for you to have low self-confidence. And then the good girl syndrome, which is the mentality of accepting the bare minimum in life. One unique thing about the good girl syndrome is on the outside, it looks like, okay, this person is bubbly, she's sociable, she's excited, she's all that. But deep down, she knows that she's missing that grounding. She knows, and that is why she tends to overcompensate in her relationship with other people. People can step on her toes, people can offend her, and she's going to keep forgiving, and she's going to keep forgiving, and she's going to keep showing up for those people. Because in a way, she draws her sense of identity from how these people view her. And for me, that is kind of how I see the good girl syndrome. And of course, I do understand this because this is a life that I have lived before. Aside from also having lived that life, I've also seen, other girls, like some other girls, one or two persons who were also, plagued by that good girl mentality. And I know that when I did sit down to analyze, to see the similarity between myself and those girls, it all stemmed down to not having a strong sense of self. And a good girl is not a divine feminine woman, I'm sorry to say, because a lot of people tend to think that the overly agreeable women are divine. No, she's not divine feminine. And you might actually think that she's being submissive. She's not really being submissive, because what she's doing, she's showing up as a good person because she doesn't know how else to show up. Basically, she's not being who she really is. So I'm a Christian and I do believe in the authority of a father. And I understand from the Bible that in the original design of God, the original family design of God, the father is the head of the home and is kind of like similar to the way Christ is to the church. And one of the major gifts that Jesus Christ gave to the church is giving them an identity, helping them to understand their identity with God. Now, here on earth, in this physical realm, that is why I believe that the father is supposed to be the one to help create the identity of the child. And this is not just some theory, right? There is a reason why, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate. There is a reason why, no matter how awkward the relationship between you and your father is, whenever you go out and you do stuff, when your dad tells you or like see the things that you've done and see that you've achieved these things and that thing, and your father says to you that he's proud of you, there is just that feeling of you just feel somewhat powerful. Like, there's also this saying that every child low-key wants the approval of their father. Like, we all want our father's approval. It is indirectly saying that we want our fathers to, like, validate us, because he is kind of like our source in physical form. So it's like when your dad commends you or says things like is proud of you, that is kind of like him validating you. So that gives a child a sense of confidence. It gives the child a boost of self-esteem, self-value, self-respect, and self-knowledge, because you know that yes, you can conquer anything if your father says that you can conquer anything. So that's kind of how it works. So when a woman grows up with a father wound, that can affect her feminine energy greatly, because it can show up in ways that it shows how she's not grounded in that knowing, that conviction that comes from knowing who you are. And yeah, that is how you see a lot of women performing femininity. They look like it all in the outside, but on the inside, really, when you look at the inside, there is nothing there. So most of the time when you really check those women, it is as a result of their father womb.